podcast is part of the Batman Universe Podcast Network, hosted by thebatmanuniverse.net. Here, we love talking about everything Batman. The BatmanUniverse.net has news, original content, and reviews about Batman comics, movies, TV shows, video games, and more. Check out the BatmanUniverse.net and join our Discord server to start chatting with fellow fans. We can't wait to talk to you guys. Also, visit our Patreon page and join our other awesome supporters. But enough of this nonsense. On with the show.
In 2008, a podcast was created with one goal: to bring Bat fans around the world news related to movies, comics, video games, television, merchandise, and so much more. And now, the Batman Universe Podcast has returned.
Hey, Bat fans. You're listening to another episode of the Batman Universe Podcast. We're back for another week. This week, of course, is your host, Scott, and BJ is with me as well. This week is going to be our Halloween-themed episode where we're going to talk a lot about Batman's master of fear, Scarecrow. So that'll be our inaugural Halloween discussion. We're going to cover a lot with this character because he's kind of an undersung character that doesn't get a lot of play, and maybe for good reason. Who knows? BJ may totally hate him, while I, have an affinity for the character, but we will find out. Ahead of that, though, we do have a couple of topics, just some quick movie news we'll jump into shortly. But as usual, we have our Let's Kick Some Icebreaker, and this week we're going to talk about Batman video games. And so, BJ, I'm going to throw it over to you in a second, but are you a big Batman gamer? And if so, do you have any particular favorite gaming memories?
Yes, I am a big gamer for Batman video games. Any Batman game that comes out, I try to get it. I really only play like Batman games or like Madden and 2K, basically when I have the time to play video games. So favorite memories, I feel it's too easy to kind of go off the Arkham games. Like those are kind of those like number one seeds for any Batman video game discussion. But I remember a while ago, me and you were talking about the Batman Returns game for Super Nintendo, and I had that game, and I could never get past like those opening levels, but those first opening levels with the attack on Gotham, like I had vivid memories of like always playing that level in that game. So I remember me and you used to kind of talk about it, go back and forth. I can still hear the clown like with the big skull driving by on the motorcycle, and like that laugh still burned in my brain.
It's funny you say that because that was also going to be my pick, is the Batman Returns Super Nintendo game. And
great minds think alike.
Yeah, and a week ago I got served an account. I can't remember what social media platform it was. It was a suggested account to follow, and it was some gamer. I think they just streamed gaming clips, and they had Batman Returns. And so I was watching it, I want to say, for like a solid 10 minutes, and it was the opening levels, and then the video cut and showed the final boss fight, with Penguin, which I never got to. But yeah, no, I can hear that motorcycle sound too. But yeah, that, I mean, obviously the Arkham games are great. No one's gonna
to go on the opposite end of like bad Batman games. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever played Batman Dark Tomorrow. Have you ever heard of that game?
I've heard of it, and I did not get it for whatever reason, but I did read some really scathing reviews.
Yes, I can back those up. I had that game, and it came with like, when you open the game, it came in like, it had like obviously like all the gamer credits and like stuff to do, but it came with like a little mini comic. So I was like, oh my God, this game's gonna be amazing. It comes with a comic book. And I remember playing it, and I didn't get through much of it because it was all the reviews like believe those reviews. Like it was pretty terrible.
That was GameCube, right?
I think I had it for Xbox. That's what I had it for.
And that actually reminds me, the one game I should be talking about that I did not mention, and my brother, if he listens to this, will probably hate me for it, but because we both played it a lot, it was Batman Vengeance on PS2.
Yes.
And that was for people who don't know what that is. It's it got the voice cast from Batman the Animated Series. It was kind of like an extra story in that world. You had Mark Hamill, you had Kevin Conroy. Mr. Freeze was in it, and it was just a really cool overarching narrative where you got to fight a lot of his classic rogues, and there was kind of a cool animation that looked a lot like season 4 of the cartoon. And it's actually not the only Batman the Animated Series inspired video game. There was one called Batman and Robin on Sega CD, which has cartoon clips you can watch on YouTube. Kind of the same deal, except obviously it's a side scroller, not 3D. And then there was a sequel to Vengeance called Rise of Sun Tzu, which they advertised as this set in the animated universe, but they were making a brand new character called Sun Tzu, who was basically just a guy, a martial arts guy. And it was kind of like a 3D beat 'em up, kind of like Ninja Turtles or something. It was okay, but it also had Scarecrow.
Oh, it all comes together.
Yeah.
I had that Rise of Sun Tzu game, and it was just kind of run around and beat up the bad guys. There was no you didn't really need to be good at video games to play
it. I couldn't wait to get my hands on the game, so I bought the novelization too, and I read that, and actually wasn't that bad. It was each chapter was a different character's perspective, but
I mean the cool thing about that game, it did have Batman, Robin, Nightwing, and Batgirl. So I guess, but other than that, it was forgettable.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. I feel like there's been a mix of good and bad. Obviously, the Arkham games were amazing, and that's kind of the ones people remember the most for good reason. There's also one that came out with 89 just called Batman, and that one, he had a gun. I do have that, actually. I still play it every now and then. I can't get past the second level.
Oh, geez. Those games back, like that Batman Returns game, impossibly hard. I don't get how anybody can beat those games. I don't think I could beat it now. Just thinking about how difficult those games were, any of those games back then.
Yeah, I think my wife beat the arcade cabinet for 89. They made it was different than the Nintendo game that I was talking about. I didn't play it, but she beat it. But that's because at the arcade we go to, it's unlimited play, so you can die all you want.
Yeah. There you go.
But anyways, before we get into our big topic, we have a couple little quick updates. The first one is a Joker 2 update. The Joaquin Phoenix Lady Gaga movie where Lady Gaga is playing Harley Quinn, and obviously Joaquin Phoenix is playing Arthur Fleck or Joker. Nothing too crazy. The director released a new image. I'll have a link to it in the blurb below. You could check out. It's kind of a dreamlike, sleepy image of Arthur Fleck standing, and there's umbrellas and rain. And just kind of a tease and reminding people that this movie is still coming out October 24th, 2024. So we have a whole year, but Todd Phillips just wants us to know it's still happening. Lady Gaga's still in it. There will be some sort of musical component, which makes sense with Lady Gaga being in the movie. But I don't know if you had thoughts on that, BJ.
I wish I did. I don't know. It was really, him just kind of looking up in the rain. I mean, he's going to get sick if he better get it. He is crazy then if he's standing out in the rain with no umbrella. But I don't know. Whenever those images come out, I'm just all right, cool, I guess. Unless it's a character in a suit, and then you can dissect the suit. I remember that first Batfleck image. I remember staring at that for a while, but other than that, not much in this one.
Yeah, and that was kind of where I was at. I was on the fence with that. I figured we should mention it, but at the same time, there's not a lot to talk about. It's just, okay, there he is again. It's just a little tease that although maybe it's just those movies that you are looking forward to, they're not going away. We're still making them kind of a thing because it's now that the writer's strike is over, it's, kind of back in action for, getting the DCU going. But who knows? That being said, we had some hot gossip for the ending DCEU. The final film is coming out November, I think, or December. I could be wrong. We've talked about this on this podcast a lot, this movie. I feel like we might have to just rename the podcast for an episode if we have to keep talking about it. But Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. For this article's purpose, I'm calling it Aquaman and the Lost Weekend. If you know what that movie is, good for you. If not, that's okay. But there was a Variety article that came out, and I'll try to do this as truncated as possible. But apparently before the sequel's even put in production, when they're still even working on the first one, Amber Heard was reportedly going to be fired due to a lack of chemistry with Jason Momoa. And this is long before the Heard Depp trial, and her boyfriend at the time, who was Elon Musk, sent a, quote, scorched earth letter to WB, basically threatening to destroy them, if she wasn't kept on in her role as Mera. And, as they were filming, she notes from her diary and things she talked about with her, I think, a therapist, became public, and things like Jason Momoa reportedly showing up drunk on set dressed as Captain Jack Sparrow, harassing her, trying to get her fired, and the director being mean to her. It's kind of it's a very toxic atmosphere, and it kind of spells a bit of disaster for, I guess, the PR for this movie that's coming out, which is kind of sad because a lot of the DC movies have been not hitting as well lately. That being said, other related news, no Justice League actors are returning as their DCEU counterparts. That was something that came out recently. And Jason Momoa will be seen again, but he's in talks to apparently play Lobo. So he is getting out of this situation, possibly with a really cool role that he has teased before in Superman Legacy. So that's all of that condensed. It's a lot, but we'll start with the first question on the drama. BJ, do you have thoughts on the drama?
Celebrities are weird, man. I don't get I didn't even know that Amber Heard ever dated Elon Musk. I know I'm not into that deep of gossip or where, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, watching that the new trailer for Aquaman, she was in it for half a second, I think, blink and you miss it, her being in it. So I don't know. Yeah. The drunk on set thing, I think the general audience really kind of doesn't really pay attention to things like that. So I don't even know if that's gonna affect the box office or anything. Obviously we're talking about it because it's DC and we kind of follow these things. But and then yeah, it wasn't surprised that nobody from the old DCEU is returning. Kind of, you didn't have to be knocked over with a feather on that one. I guess the one surprise is Gal Gadot, but once all these strikes happens, the writing's on the wall, and it is kind of weird that Momoa is leaving, gonna not be Aquaman and be Lobo. I like Lobo, but he is kind of a couple notches below Aquaman on the DC character hierarchy. But what are you gonna do? At least it's worked for him.
Yeah, and I wonder, it's such a high-profile casting, and Jason Momoa, people love him. It seems like he has a really positive personality that people gravitate toward, and that's
Aquaman
cool.
Made what? Aquaman made what? $1 billion, right? It's the highest grossing movie, and now it's gonna just kind of show up in a Superman movie for a few minutes. Maybe he'll end up getting a HBO Max show or something, but. Which would be cool, but it is kind of a step back.
Yeah, it is weird, and I think you're right. It's probably going to be it's probably going to be a tease, and then they're going to develop some kind of project with him, whether that is an HBO Max show or I don't know, throwing him in a teen movie. Who knows? I could see it going either way. But yeah, it is weird to have, and all the cast casting, all the people we've cast as like heroes and whatnot who are appearing in Superman Legacy, to have like Lobo in that mix is also kind of a
'Cause
interesting.
Lobo's a loud character. He's like a big personality. He's gonna chew up some scenery. Like I remember him in the cartoon. Like that's probably my favorite version of Lobo. Like one of my favorite, like the two-parter Justice League is where they think Superman is dead, but Lobo shows up like, oh, I'll just replace him. Like I like Lobo like interacting like with the heroes in that cartoon, but he can be kind of grating and annoying after a while.
Yeah, it's funny because I had to remember correctly who voiced him in the cartoons, and I was like, I thought it was Brad Garrett, and I just had to Google it real quick because
It is, right?
I could hear it. But yeah, it's just it's a weird when you think about like his career, like as a comedian and everything. Lobo's kind of a weird character for him, but yeah, it's like that's how like obnoxious he was. They had Brad Garrett screaming every episode.
He was great in those. Whenever he showed up in the animated stuff, I always liked seeing him. But like by the end, I was like, all right, let's get this guy on his skull motorcycle and get out of here.
And now I wonder if they're going to bring his daughter into the new movie universe. Who knows? I actually haven't read anything with her in it. I'll be honest.
Same.
But, oh well. I think I'm good with one Lobo.
yeah, for sure.
Hey, you got a second? The Batman universe is looking for Batman fans with something to say. If you're interested in writing reviews of your favorite Batman books, or you want to contribute original content with articles like The Top 10 Forgotten Batman Villains, or Why Dead Didio's exit from DC was the worst thing to ever happen, then we want to invite you to join our TBU staff family as a writer. Just reach out to our email, tbu@thebatmanuniverse.net, and let us know that you want to become one of our writers. It's that easy. And honestly, there's no reason not to. You get exclusive access to our TBU staff Discord server, you get early access to comics, and you meet a lot of cool people. What are you waiting for? Email us at tbu@thebatmanuniverse.net and let us know that you want to become one of our writers.
All right. And so now we're back with our main topic of the episode. With Halloween coming up, we've done character discussions in the past. We did a whole ranking series with Riddlers, and that was very, mathematical. And, we had a whole spreadsheet and everything ranking actors who played Riddler and whatnot. Fun episode if you guys want to look back. But for Halloween, it's only appropriate we talk about the Scarecrow before we get into discussion points on the character and just offer up things we like and dislike, because there is a story I'm going to bring up that I really hate related to this character, and I can't talk about it enough because I remember reading it as the issues came out. We'll do some quick, fast facts. So for those who don't know, Scarecrow's real name is Jonathan Crane, Dr. Jonathan Crane. He was a professor who was fired for doing inappropriate experiments on his students and at large at the university he was working. His first appearance was World's Finest Comics #3 in September of 1941. And he is not the first person to use fear gas. Actually, in his first appearance, he used a gun, and that was what he used to scare people. Just kind of waved a revolver around, and everybody got terrified, and that's how he got his way with people. Hugo Strange was the first Batman villain to use a, quote, fear gas. It's not necessarily the fear toxin that Scarecrow uses, but it's something similar, or maybe a proto-fear gas, we could say, to Scarecrow's version in Detective Comics number 46, which also came out in the 40s. I'd have to check on the year. But it's kind of the general gist of the character over the years. There have been different revisions to his history, kind of delving into like baby Jonathan Crane and his weird messed up childhood and whatnot. That's something we'll get into a little later. There has been one other person to wear the mantle of the Scarecrow. That's Adeline Stern, and that's in the Batman Beyond series. But otherwise, consistently, it has been Jonathan Crane, all Scarecrow all the time. And now for our first discussion point, I wanted to talk about Scarecrow storylines, and I am going to throw this over to BJ. But do you have any favorite storylines with the character?
Just comic books?
It could be any media. Like you can, if you want to even pick like comic and then movie and then TV or whatever scratches that itch.
All right. So comics, I feel like whenever I read Scarecrow in comics, he's always kind of a like a backup character, a part of like the larger scheme, like in Hush or Long Halloween, Dark Victory, show up for an issue, throw a nursery rhyme out there, get beat up, and then move on. But for comics, I was thinking, because you obviously have the show notes, and I was looking at it, trying to think in my brain of Scarecrow stories. I do like, he's not really involved a lot in Nightfall, but I do like he like kind of teams up with the Joker, and like they're almost kind of like an Abbott and Costello, like a little comedy duo where like they're just kind of like bicker, like an Odd Couple almost, like they're just kind of bickering at each other the whole time. And I remember like then at some point, Scarecrow blasts Batman with the fear gas, and it causes Batman to like think about the death of Jason Todd, and then he beats the crap out of the Joker like in the sewer before like it floods. So I like that moment in the comics, but I would probably say my favorite storyline involving Scarecrow is the three-parter that leads to Tim Drake finally putting on the Robin suit, where he there's like citizens going around like having no fear and kind of like killing people or doing like crazy things, and like Batman's investigating it, and then he leads him right into a trap where Tim finds out it's Scarecrow, and then Scarecrow's got Batman hung up, and he's like doing all his potions and his fear gas, and he's got spiders crawling up Batman, and then Tim shows up without the Robin suit and then ends up saving Batman, and then at the end becomes Robin officially. So that's kind of more of a Robin storyline with Scarecrow in it, but that's one of my more memorable Scarecrow storylines from comics.
It's funny because I was like the Tim Drake one. It's been a really while. I did read that, but it's been a really long while on that one. But that was one of the ones I feel like they loosely adapted for the animated series for like the season 4 with Batman and Tim Drake, where Scarecrow is, I think it was called Never Fear or something. I could be wrong with the episode title, but the one where he takes everybody's inhibitions away and they're all just like doing like crazy Daredevil stuff. And I'll get to that one later because that actually ties into actors who have portrayed Scarecrow that I really like. And that episode is near the top for me. But the storyline I was going to pick from the comics is also the Nightfall one. And I think it's kind of similar along the same lines because you're talking about, how he shows up and does some like nursery rhymes and stuff, especially in like Long Halloween and Dark Victory and all that. And like, it's eerie, I guess. I don't know. But I like the weird design that Tim Sale has. But Nightfall, it is kind of that weird routine. And what I like about that storyline too is the way it ends. Batman doesn't even catch Scarecrow. It's the Joker like beats the crap out of him. Like after all that stuff happens in the sewer, and that's how like Scarecrow gets left is like they have their team up and then they're done, and Joker's just like, I've had it with you, and just like pummels him and casts him to the side. And then
that great moment where Scarecrow hits Joker with the fear gas, and Joker pretends that he's almost kind of like Jack Nicholson in Batman 89, where he like pretends he's all scared, and then he goes like psych, and then he ends up beating the crap out of him. Like I remember that moment very vividly.
Yeah, it's such a fun one. And then like my other pick that I thought about, and I have to reread this. I've been meaning to, but it always stuck with me. It was when Batman Begins came out, they started doing like year 1 books again. Like there's a Ra's al Ghul one, and then there was a Scarecrow one. They're both like 2-issue miniseries. Anyways, the Scarecrow one went into like little baby Jonathan Crane and how he had this really crazy religious grandma and like kind of an abandoned dad. And he was just like a sad sack little kid that would eventually murder someone when he was like 18 or something like that. And so it's just it's this origin for this guy who's obsessed with fear because he's basically terrified and terrorized by it like all throughout childhood. And so it's just, it was the art was Sean Murphy, who is most famous now for the Batman White Knight, series. But I really liked the weird piecemeal costume that Scarecrow wore in that one. It was kind of neat, and it's on the cover if you just like do a quick Google. But yeah, it was cool. That being said, I do want to mention a dishonorable mention for Scarecrow storylines. There is a comic, I can't remember the name of the issue, but it was one of the issues that made me seriously consider quit reading Batman comics for a while. It was when Scarecrow was injected with a chemical that turned him into a scare beast. And I think it was a 3-issue series where there's this giant monster running around like slashing people up, and surprise, Penguin had like Scarecrow's assistant turn him into a monster, and it was very dumb, very sad. The reveal, you saw a mile coming, you saw it like from a mile away in the first issue of this arc, and it just kept going. And I think one whole issue was devoted to Batman just having a nightmare yet again about Jason Todd. But horrible.
When was this story written? When did this story come out?
It was before Under the Red Hood, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it was. I have to look it up, but yeah, Scare Beast was what they called it. So if anyone looked that up with Scarecrow, they could probably find it.
Very original. How'd they come up with
that? Terrible, oh my God. Yeah. But before we move on, do you have any storylines from other media outside of comics?
Obviously there's probably, I do love the episode. I don't know it's early in the run where it's when Dick Grayson is Robin, he's in college, and
football one, right?
Fear of Victory. Yes, Fear of Victory.
Yeah,
the football one. Yeah, I like that one. It's a Robin story. It's got football. It's got Batman. So it's kind of like there's sports and Batman combined. So it's kind of like hits all my favorite stuff right there. I do like that one. That episode. I like the one you mentioned, the Never Fear, because they had a great Batman moment when Robin's got him tied up, and then Batman's kind of like, I think he calls him like a little snot or something. Like he really kind of lays into him. And obviously Over the Edge, even though Scarecrow's in that for 2 minutes, but that is kind of like the starting point of that episode is Scarecrow.
Yeah,
those are probably like the 3 most memorable Scarecrow episodes for me from the animated series.
Over the Edge, that was the one where like Batgirl's having a nightmare, right? And it was like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah. He knocks Batgirl off the roof and kills her, and then it sets off that whole chain of events.
Yeah, I like that because it gave us that really weird BDSM Bane design.
Yeah.
That I love. I love that design. I thought that was so cool, but we didn't get to see much of it in the cartoons. But
Paul Dini episode. That's a great Paul Dini episode.
Yeah. Speaking of that Tim Drake episode, though, I'll circle back to whenever I read the comics or any sort of media with the Scarecrow, if I'm reading it or reading synopsis about it, the voice that always comes to mind for me is Jeffrey Combs from that episode. He's not the first guy to play Scarecrow in the cartoons. They actually have someone else. And Scarecrow also had 3 costume changes in Batman the Animated Series. But Jeffrey Combs came in on season 4, and he has a very quiet, kind of emotionless, haunting voice. And it came in with this new redesign that was much darker, broader, kind of more of there was a noose around his neck and more of a death mask thing going on. But that forever imprinted in my brain, how the Scarecrow should sound. He did actually come back and voice the Scarecrow in the Batman Rise of Sunsu game I talked about earlier. So call back to the beginning of the episode. But BJ, do you have a actor or voice that comes to mind when you think of the Scarecrow?
I didn't know, I never really knew any of the Scarecrow voice actors' names in any of the show, but there were a couple of them, right? And I think, like you said, that that last one, Jeffrey Combs, is it right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like that is kind of like the creepiest, like that design and voice compared to like when we first see Scarecrow in the animated series is like almost kind of miles apart. Like there's almost like you can make your own up like backstory of like this guy's been messing around with all these fear toxins. Like he's not even like some goofy bag headed guy anymore. Now he's like got the noose around his neck and he's just got like a wooden stick cane that he's beating people with. So yeah, and then I don't know. I mean, I guess we miss out if we don't mention Cillian Murphy or Killian Murphy, however you say it, from the Nolan movies. Like he wasn't the main villain in those movies, but he always did like he gave a great performance and like he was great in that in those scenes with Batman and Batman Begins. Like when he was throwing when he takes out his mask on Falcone. Like he is fun in those movies.
Yeah, no, I do actually like him. He's a really good Jonathan Crane Scarecrow. I think my only thing was I wish there was more of him, even though he's kind of the linchpin that's in all three movies at some point.
Yeah, other than Bruce Wayne, Lucius Fox, and Alfred, like it's Jonathan Crane and Gordon, obviously, but they're the only ones in all three.
True. I mentioned it briefly earlier, but Scarecrow, kind of like the Riddler, is a man of many outfits. He is a very fashionable villain about town. Depending on which incarnation you look at, you can go back to the classic one, which is also the first episode in Batman Animated Series' design, where it's just kind of a sack over the head with brown and red and then a hat. But there have been a ton of different looks over the year. I feel like artists really get to like take liberties with how they want the Scarecrow to look and kind of lean into different, styles of, I'll just say, decay, depending on how horrific they want to go with it. Like even the video games, like Arkham Knights, I have it in our show notes. I have Arkham Knight's design, but obviously Arkham Asylum is a completely different design where he's, kind of going shirtless there. But do you have any favorite designs?
I'm a simple guy. I think I kind of like stick with like that. I think you in the show notes, like the Tim Sale design, like the Jim Lee design, just kind of a basic, have him look like a Scarecrow. Like, I don't know. I'm really not into like those Arkham designs where he's shirtless. Like I said, he's shirtless. I don't know why he's shirtless. He's a twig, basically. Like he could use a milkshake or a few sandwiches or anything. But then he's got his gloves of just fear toxin needles, which seems tough. Like, don't cross your arms, you might poke yourself or anything. Like, I'm really not into, for any character, really, like, the more extreme it gets, like, I'm kind of like, all right, kind of, you could have toned this down a little bit.
Stick with his sack and wear his hat.
Yeah, just give him a hat, give him some straw.
I will say I thought of this like topic just because when Fear State was coming out, and I have like mixed feelings on that series. But the Jorge Jimenez design for Fear State was kind of a really crazy departure from the character. You have like he's got like this gas mask and this crazy like twigs like everywhere, like from his back and like the top of his head, and like it's kind of like this really insane design. It almost looks like he's wearing like some weird Wicker Man outfit, but at the same time, like the way it's colored, I think Tommy Mori did like most of the coloring for those issues, and the way Jorge Jimenez draws it, it's like really kind of scary and eerie looking. Like some like guy, I don't know how he put this costume together, but like some like crazy nut job guy, like just with this really intense, I don't know, insane outfit. And I thought it worked and I thought it was cool. And I feel like for most of the designs, you really can't go wrong other than, maybe him running around, with a loincloth and a sack over his head and nothing else on. But maybe it was really hot in Arkham Asylum. I don't know. Poison Ivy was also taking things over and she probably needed the heat for her botanical garden.
Yeah, it is. he is like Scarecrow's probably on that list of characters where like every artist can. There is no like set definitive like. All right, Joker's always got to be in a purple suit. Two-Face, his suit always has to have one nice side, one bad side, or things like that. But Scarecrow is like the artist can really kind of go wild and kind of design however they want. Like I'm sure the next time we see a Scarecrow story, he'll have a totally different outfit from the Jorge Jimenez one, and then the next one after that, and so on.
Yeah. But well, we'll see what they come up with next. It seems like they probably won't. Well, Scarecrow's
Well,
actually
I forgot about what does it say anything about Fear State that was like the most recent Scarecrow story, and none of us really kind of talked about it. Like, didn't much
Oh yeah,
didn't
yeah.
leave much of an impression on us.
It was interesting because I was reviewing the Gotham War Red Hood #2 issue earlier today, and that design pops up again. So I was like, oh, perfect
Okay.
timing. We're going to talk about this later. And I'm not going to say how I feel about that issue because this will actually release before that issue comes out, and you'll have to wait for my review. But we can talk about Fear State, and yeah, my reviews are live on all those, and they are kind of disappointing. But
Yeah, there wasn't. It was, yeah, it just didn't really leave an impression on us. I mean, we both brought up stories from Nightfall where Scarecrow's a big character. So
yeah.
what's that? Yeah, Fear State. Not much there.
And I guess that actually, I had a different question on here, but I'm going to switch it up because the question I had on here originally was a little too hard, I thought, and I actually don't have a full answer for it. But my revised question is, do you think he works better as a major player or a bit player? Or wait, let's rephrase it. Do you think Scarecrow could work as a major villain and they just haven't tapped it right? Or is he kind of forever best known as like this bit player routine partner?
Yeah, so I guess like if you were to give me like, all right, BJ, name your top 10 Batman villains, like I would probably say Scarecrow's in there because he's been around forever and like he's in all sorts of media and he's always kind of one of those like first Rogues Gallery members. But I remember listening to Fat Man on Batman with Kevin Smith and Paul Dini back when that was a Batman show. And Paul Dini said like it was like Scarecrow episodes were tough because like do you enhance like does he enhance someone's fear or does he take away someone's fear or like there's only so much you can do with fear like for that character. So maybe like you do need the right writer or creator to kind of tap into that and do something new. But yeah, maybe Scarecrow does kind of work in like in a Log Halloween or a Hush where he'll show up for one issue, throw some fear gas and kind of throw Batman just a different wrinkle or anything like that, kind of throw him off his game just for an issue. But at the end, he's not the main villain driving the story. So yeah, I guess maybe I kind of do like him in a small dose of fear gas.
And I think that's like the thing is I was thinking about like my original question was like if you could tell a Scarecrow story, what would it be? And it's a hard one to answer because everything I came up with was like, well, why would Scarecrow do it? Because I feel like him as a person, like everything we know about his origins, it's either like for personal revenge, like he's getting back at like the dean, or like some professors or like some childhood bullies or whatever, or he's just doing it because he can and he's working for someone. He doesn't have any like ambitions. It's not like he just wants a bunch of money necessarily or whatever. Like I think going back to Batman Begins, Christopher Nolan using him as like an agent of Ra's al Ghul, just kind of sowing discord and having like the city rip itself apart. Like I feel like that's kind of one of the better avenues you can do with that character, because he's interested in watching what happens, but it's not like he's like, oh, I'm gonna like run this city, when I'm done with this.
Yeah,
I don't think he cares.
Even in Begins, I think like Batman asks Ra's al Ghul like why Crane, and he's just like, oh, he just wanted money, like he thought we were only after money or things like that. But like, no, we obviously have bigger plans. Like he wasn't even in on the main plan.
Yeah.
And like Like, and I think back to that Tim Drake story I mentioned, like Scarecrow doesn't even show up to the last page of like the second issue, and then he's the main villain. Like I think he's even doing that, just like someone hired him or whatever to like kind of just mess around with the city, or he just wanted to do an experiment. So yeah, it's Scarecrow is one of those villains, like he is kind of, it's almost like Riddler-esque, or it's like one note really, where like Riddler's always going to leave a riddle, or Scarecrow's always going to have someone with fear gas. So there's really not much to do, but like in the hands of a great writer, like they can make something special.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what they do next if they use him. It seems like he's going to have some involvement in Gotham, or at least seems like all the villains are going to kind of get together and do whatever it is they're going to do. I don't know.
This is our call out to Matt Reeves, calling you out right now. Let's see what you can do with Jonathan Crane. But even that, like when we say like, oh, who would you want to see in the Batman Part 2? Like, I don't think we've ever kind of brought up the Scarecrow. Maybe it is kind of recent from Begins, but like no one ever kind of brings him up.
You know what? You know why though? I think because I did think about it, because we did an episode, way back where we talked about like a lot of that. I think it's because like Paul Dano's Riddler kind of rode that line of like, terror.
Yeah. And even that, like I remember, I think we talked about that too. We're like, oh, would we want to see Hush? But like Paul Dano kind of did some like Hush moves of like going back into the Wayne history or things like that. So even that was kind of like, Jesus, Riddler's kind of got, like you said, he's got some terror tactics and some Hush tactics. And, at the end we see him laughing and singing in Arkham, and he's laughing with the Joker. So now he's going to be full Frank Gorshin, maybe. Like, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see what some Elseworlds looks like, because they are doing that Batman 89 follow-up comic starting next month, where Scarecrow and Harley Quinn will be the villains. So
that's true. They did always. I think he was always pretty much rumored if they were to do like a fifth of those 90s Batman movies. Like I think he would have been the villain.
Yeah, but oh well.
somewhere in the multiverse we have that movie.
That pretty much wraps it up. But before we close out this episode, I realized that we should have been thanking our sponsors and Patreon members on the site, and I have been bad as a host in not mentioning that. So before we wrap things up, I would like to show some Bat fan appreciation to Lisa Slack, Ian Miller, Joshua Lepin-Bertone, Rob O, Stephanie Mounts, Donovan Morgan Grant, Stanton's Grave, Ed Grouse, Captain America, thank you, sir, Caspian 73, Johnny McCluskey, Jessica Morales, David Richards, Donald Townsend, and Brendan Roberts. And if you would like to join these members of our Bat fan group and get exclusive access to these episodes before they drop, I will have a link below where you can sign up and get your name on the appreciation wall on our site. Visit us at thebatmanuniverse.net for comic reviews, movie news, and more. Want to chat with us? Hop on the Discord link also below. You can also write to us at tbu@thebatmanuniverse.net, and we'll respond to your comments on air. If you like these episodes, please subscribe, rate, and share. For BJ and myself, thanks for listening.